Thank you everybody for coming. We are competing with the Expo happy hour and maybe dinner, so thank you all for coming to this and listening to me instead. Today we're going to talk about Outposts and managing and automating how we track that capacity across a multi-account organization in AWS. So my group is a central platform team in an organization that's partway through migrating to cloud. One of the fundamental things that we wanted to do with our public cloud and AWS usage is make sure that it's self-service and that it is cloud native. So we are in the process of moving to cloud and modernizing our applications. And right in the middle of it, we decided to buy Outposts. So today I'm going to talk about Outposts, but it's more than just Outpost tech talk. I'm going to talk and tell a story about how we got Outposts, and it wasn't exactly what we thought. It was a good solution to not quite our problem. So like a lot of things in AWS, the service came out and we thought it would do something. It didn't quite have all the same functionality. But unlike things that are in the console and you can just click away and not use it anymore, Outpost costs millions of dollars and is installed in our data centers. So it's really a story of how we adapted and learned and worked with what we had to automate and manage that ourselves. And we used some AWS tools to do it. So it was an interesting challenge that I wanted to share with you and tell that story, not just of Outposts, but how our team worked on it and iterated through the problems. And then, we also did this during a global pandemic. So just to set the stage a bit, I am Margaret. I am a AWS community hero. I run the user group in Chicago, and I also am an organizer of DevOps Days Chicago. And my day job, I'm the program manager at Morningstar. So Morningstar, not the frozen veggie burgers, but the financial services company, hopefully you've heard of and used. If you haven't, Morningstar is about 12,000 people across 29 countries. We offer financial services advice as well as manage portfolios, credit ratings, all sorts of aspects of financial services. I think 60,000 investments covered by our data. We have been around for a while, more than 35 years, so we started with at least 15 data centers globally in 2018 and started that migration to cloud and got partway through it. We have all new development in AWS, and we have more than a petabyte of data in our AWS-based data lake. So today I'll talk a little bit about Outposts, what it is, but mostly what Outposts was at the beginning and what our use case was and what we kind of assumed. And then once we got into it, what our challenges were and what I like to call the chaos and excel and how we adapted. We came up with something that I called a quota to manage our capacity, track usage, and find it across at least 25 accounts that are using Outposts globally. And then talking about how we moved that solution and built something with AWS native tools and moved it into AWS and did it for low cost, minimal maintenance, because if we built it, we know we'd have to run it. So we wanted to make it AWS native. So we automated, track, and manage that capacity. And some lessons learned. I have a lot of lessons learned about Outposts, but today I'll talk about the lessons learned about the solution. We will do Q&A. I think I'll talk too fast and we'll have some extra time. So if anything about Outposts, I will answer truthfully. All right, so Outposts and what we did with it. So in 2019, I kind of alluded to it, we've been in multi-year migration to cloud. We had data centers globally and a lot of teams using AWS, and all our new innovation was focused on AWS native, but we still had a lot of legacy products, services, data sitting in data centers. So we wanted to motivate teams to be cloud native, to modernize, and to get into cloud. So we set some ambitious goals. We wanted to go all in on AWS. We wanted to close all global data centers by 2025. 2019, that seemed like really far away, but now that it's 2022, that's getting very close. So we thought we'd start by targeting kind of legacy systems, things that are facing end of life, end of service, and anything that's unused. So Outpost was kind of an interesting idea that we heard about from our Amazon team, and it seemed like, you can do training, you can do a quick lab and click around in the console, but actually getting hands-on experience doing something in AWS and it actually being kind of that friendly confines of your data center seemed like an interesting concept. So we thought of it as a stepping stone to cloud. And here's our CTO, James Rose, looking wistfully out the window going, let's buy an Outpost. Sounds great. So in 2019 at reInvent, AWS announced Outposts. The concept, as far as we knew, was that it would be some type of AWS-provided hardware. It would be an extension of Amazon, but co-located either in a colo facility or in your data center. We knew it would be fully managed. It would appear like it was in the console. And honestly, we didn't know what services would be hosted on Outposts or in region. We knew it would be some kind of compute, probably maybe some containers, storage, networking, who knows. It sounded like it would all fit together well. The big thing that was a big selling point for us was that it was the control plane of AWS. It would look like it's in region, and then you could take advantage of all the AWS APIs, the trusted advisor checks, things like that, that you would be used to once you get into native AWS. We have a lot of automations and things like that for our AWS native teams. We have some automations and tools for checking that people are doing the right things in AWS, using our Morningstar approved AMIs, not doing anything in a public subnet, things like that. So people could experience that, but also use Outposts. Essentially, we thought the day one features would be out of the box. It's in AWS, but locally on Outposts. So we said, sounds great, let's get one. So here's kind of what that concept and our plans and our goals had in mind. It was essentially 3 options for our product teams. If it's old and the product is going away or the underlying feature would retire by 2025, retire, easy. If it needed some refactoring, maybe the team didn't have any experience in AWS, it could live happily on Outposts while you refactor and kind of modernize, maybe move into containers, something like that, and then ultimately go into AWS. If teams were ready to go to AWS, absolutely. We already have foundations and accounts and all that good structure in Amazon. So this was a stepping stone, like a refactor space before refactor spaces existed. So we thought it was great. Sounds nice. Let's get to. So here's me last year at reInvent standing next to a 42U rack, Margaret for scale. We initially bought one Outpost in Dallas, which is our primary data center, and then we bought a second one in Chicago, which is our DR facility. And then logically, we put those in the AWS regions that are our primary and DR regions. So Dallas is logically US East 1, and Chicago is US West 2 for backup. And then our data centers are networked together, and we have direct connects between Dallas or Chicago and AWS. So we got all the networking set up, we got it installed. I think the first one we got delivered late winter, spring 2020, and then we got Chicago, I think by June 2020. So here's kind of logically what it looks like and then what it looks like in the console. So here's our Dallas primary Outpost. Outpost is physically in our Dallas data center, and logically in the network, it's its own subnet and VPC, and it looks like it's in EC2. So in the console picture, there's a Teams, I took a snapshot and redacted some things that you shouldn't see, but it is an EC2 instance in Outpost, and the one next to it in the list is in region in US East 1. So it just looks like any old EC2 instance. Cool, that's awesome. Really easy for teams to get in there and try something and check it out. But this talk wouldn't exist if this is what our network and account structure looked like. We have more than 200 teams using AWS already, and then our goal of bringing people into AWS meant more accounts, more regions, and more things to set up. So here's kind of a diagram of what conceptually that looks like. We have more than 10 regions enabled and connected with our Direct Connect links. We provide all of our teams 2 accounts, production and non-production. And then we separate each AWS account is per team. So managed portfolio gets the 2 accounts, non-production and production. And then credit ratings has totally separate AWS accounts. They're all managed through organizations, but that is our way of separating them and reducing the blast radius So credit ratings data should never, ever touch managed portfolios or the data lake or some other team that's out there. So we have 200 teams, more than 400 accounts, all those different regions. It gets a little messy. And then we just have the 2 VPCs and outposts. So how do we connect that to the teams who use APAC regions or European regions, but also want to take advantage of outposts? How do we share that? Luckily, that first challenge was pretty easy to solve. There's AWS Resource Access Manager, or RAM, so you can RAM share the VPC. So in Outpost, because it's logically, you pick that VPC, we picked the 2 VPCs. You just share that subnet with the team account. So we centrally manage those VPC and our network boundaries. So we can share that with all the different team accounts. You can segment the resources between Outpost and in-region. We named our VPCs Outposts. So if you look at your instance, you can see what VPC it's in. It says Outposts. So it's hopefully pretty obvious. It was awesome. Teams already using AWS got in there and launched it easily. The downside, this was still before it was generally available, GA, and we talked to the Outpost team all the time. We had all these check-ins with them, and then we got it installed. We had this RAM share. We started doing things, and then we thought, wait a minute. If we RAM share something that is limited capacity on-premise, we only have so much Outpost capacity, how do we prevent one team from auto-scaling, an auto-scale gone wrong, and it spins up all the instances in your Outposts, and then other teams and other accounts can't use it, or your Outpost is full? That is not something that happens in region in AWS because you have theoretically infinite capacity. So what do we do? And Outpost team was honest with us. Eventually they said, your concept of a quota is unique to you guys. The Outpost team and most of the Outpost users haven't had to deal with it, so we could put it on a roadmap and it will be way into the future, or you can work on something yourselves, which was kind of a moment of clarity towards the middle end of 2020. So we started trying to figure out, what does that mean? How do we do this? So this is the solutions that we started and the iterations, Excel and chaos. So we got it all set up, we got it networked. Some teams started messing around in it. Our teams had some tests. So we also created a concept of migration squads because we knew we wanted people coming into AWS and learning about cloud, sharing the love. So we created some cross-functional teams we called migration squads. So the squads were our cloud services, our central platform team, in addition to traditional network folks, traditional data center folks, our tech ops folks, to help you kind of understand the path of what used to be a firewall ticket and some on-premise physical changes is now a NACL or security group change. We'll help you deploy. We created templates. We created tons and tons of documentation. And then another interesting thing that we didn't think about was predicting the current on-prem capacity and what that means for an EC2 instance. Because a team knows that on-prem, I have a server that has 8 CPU. So I need a server that has 8 CPU in EC2. Well, your 8 CPU on-premise, you use 30% of the time the entire time. So do you really need 8 CPU? Yeah, we need it. We might need it. So changing that mentality of the on-prem, I need the maximum capacity, and mapping that to what you might probably need for EC2 capacity was interesting. So just dashboarding was step one. You know, what is out there? We know what we ordered and the SKUs. I believe at the time for Outposts, you could get M5, C5, and R5, and then they've expanded it, and now there's more, I think, storage optimized and all, certain types of instances. It's not the entirety of AWS instances and Outposts. So when we bought it, we said general purpose. We had C5s and M5s. And then how we carved it up, we talked to our account team and said, we want 50 C5 larges in Dallas and 25 in Chicago. Seems right. Theoretically, we should use less in our DR region. But then things were different. Teams said that they only needed 5 instances, but then we noticed there's 7 in their account. What are you doing? Did you forget to terminate an instance? Did you need more from on-prem? And then you know, the use cases started changing too. Well, we didn't have full DR on-premise, so we want to do it right in Outposts. course, I'm going to let you do DR the right way, but it's hard to keep track of all of that. So this is a dashboard. This is a Splunk dashboard. We wanted to show teams what the instance type usage was in either Dallas or Chicago, and then what that would be if it was deployed in AWS, what that would cost. We wanted to do the showbacks for cost right away. And then here's a visual of some of my Excel and chaos of version 1. So we knew what we ordered. We had some different instance. We did some magic of like, how many C5 larges do we need? Should we try to buy some R5s for like database and more intense compute? And then what are teams telling us that they need? How many instances? What do they map to on-prem servers? What should that be in an EC2 instance in Outposts? And then what is the utilization? Are teams really using it? Are they overusing it? Who's overusing it? Which types are you overusing? It was awful. It was a lot of Excel. It was disjointed. It was just a bad user experience. You know, we want people to be cloud native, but they have to fill in a form for how many servers they want. Sounds a lot like a data center. So maybe through my extensive complaining, or maybe my team took pity on me, but some folks on my team helped me automate a little bit just of the simple tracking parts. So we had some Splunk dashboards that were awesome, and then we updated the Excels for all the potential iterations of what people would need in Outposts. So that big, long spreadsheet, we have US East 1 and US West 2, and then production and non-production for all the teams using it. And then we had 10 potential instance types. So multiply all of that, and we had one big spreadsheet of this team in this region in this account is using this instance type and needs 2, again and again and again, over and over. So the automation part was, let me just show you. So people would tell me what they use, what they need. I would work with the estimates and go with past quotas. That's me, the little admin. Create a quota, this nice little spreadsheet. So the automation part that we got to plug into, whenever I uploaded a CSV to S3, it would do the write, and it would trigger some lambdas and DynamoDB tables that we have to map which team and which account that connects to, and then find that information of if that team is over the quota that they told us, then send off some more automations and shoot off an email. Hey, you're over quota. What are you doing? So we had the Lambda DynamoDB table and step functions is something we have in-house already. We call it the Cloud Services API. So we know what our accounts are, who the teams are, and the number of the account, the name, and all of that good stuff. So we were able to plug into that API that we have already and send notifications quickly. Excuse me. So here's just a screenshot of version 2. Behind is the S3 bucket. So every time I uploaded a CSV, it would trigger that automation. And then up front, some information we got from Outposts, a good suggestion from the Outpost team, was a CloudWatch dashboard. What is out there in use and what is available for capacity. And honestly, that was the most capacity management they had and really offered us. So we could see what we ordered and what's in use or not in use. So that's great for reordering, but then from that dashboard, we couldn't get the metrics we needed for which team is using it, who's using too much. Excuse me. So the obvious flaw in this plan is me, the bottleneck. People would come to me and say, Margaret, what's our quota? Margaret, how much capacity do we have left? Margaret, can I get another instance? It doesn't scale. I don't scale. So version 3, our team, Swapnil and our team made this beautiful UI. We call it the Cloud Services Outpost Capacity Quota. It's very creative. So it is a web UI that has all of that information in that big long spreadsheet. So now it's not me with all the information. If someone on a team using Outposts wants to know what their quota is, go look. So democratizing that data was a big step just to help people understand what can I use, how does it work. It shouldn't be like a data center where you fill in a spreadsheet and get capacity delivered to you. You should be able to do it more self-service. So multiple people can now view it and see it. We also created a way for more admins to get out there. So anyone who is on those migration squads would be able to see this and then also edit it. Those edit buttons are very key. Another automation that we had in-house with our cloud services API, I like to call trust but auto-terminate. So I mentioned we have a hardened AMI, or a few, in each AWS account. We take the Amazon Linux or Windows AMIs and then add some things to it, harden it, and then share it to all of our accounts. But we want people to use the AMI and to enforce it. If someone uses a non-standard AMI, if they launch an EC2 instance from something else, it goes through that cloud services API. If it's in the DynamoDB table for the right AMI and the account, if they have an exception or not, if they don't have an exception, terminates that instance. So we got to repurpose it here. If it was launched, an EC2 instance launched in Outposts, and it was above the team's quota, we terminate it. And then they get a nice little email. Hey, you tried to do something, and you're not allowed to. So here's our process with the Lambdas, DynamoDB table, and AWS step functions. We get to automate the enforcement of it. So here's our quota system all together. Me, the admin, I can still bulk upload the S3 data, and it updates and triggers that whole process. But then also we have the other flow, where users can see the web UI, the admins can log in and edit, and all of that goes through API gateways, which loops into the Lambda, DynamoDB, step function, Lambda functions. So we can auto-terminate things that are over quota and notify people. So that is much more cloud native. People get the immediate feedback of if they're over quota, they're not waiting on some spreadsheet to come back, they're not messaging me on Teams, hey Margaret, can I get instances? They know immediately what their quota is and if it went over. We did have a use case one time where there was a runaway auto-scaling group and they had gone over their quota, but then the auto-scaling group would keep trying to relaunch, so they got about hundreds of emails all at once. And what's wrong? Because they got all of those emails, then they knew that they had a problem. It was a runaway auto-scaling group. And luckily, we did not run out of Outpost capacity that day. Otherwise, it might have used all of our C5 larges or whatever it was that we had. So luckily, we were able to prevent, trying to undo it would be just worse. If you had to go back and say, who used up all the C5 instances? Oh, it wasn't me. Oh, it wasn't me. Luckily, we had this built in from the beginning. All right, so I have a demo. It is screenshots. I did not dare to try to do a live demo on stage with Wi-Fi, so it's some screenshots. So I've shared this a little bit before, but here is the user view. It is hopefully very straightforward and simple. We've got the ID, which is our Amazon account ID. The team name, that's what we call our accounts. That's how we track who's using it. So the team ID is something useful for us. The region, if it's primary or DR region, and then prod and non-prod account. So each team, prod and non-prod, region, and then our instance type potentials. All right, this part I'm excited about. Other people can log in and manage it. It's not me in a spreadsheet, it's not me in S3. Anyone on the migration squad can log in and be an admin. So here's the logged in view. Ta-da, the edit button. Edit, anyone can go in there and change the instance type. We purposely didn't want anyone to bulk change it just in case something happened, but we still had that other way of if you uploaded a new sheet, it would bulk change. So you click on that edit button. Here's our team manage portfolios. They want to increase their C5 large instances. They are doing a lot of work this weekend. They need 10 instances. Click save. Ta-da! Now they have 10 C5 large in US East 1. It doesn't sound super exciting, but it's great that it is democratized and everyone can use it and it's shared. And it is dollars a day solution, and we don't have to maintain it because it is majority serverless. So I have a lot of lessons and takeaways about Outposts. I'm happy to talk about it too. We've got 2 mics down here, but our lessons learned, and really my lessons learned, were work with awesome people, iterate on solutions, and never accept the face value of the solution that you think you have. You can always improve and iterate, work with people on your team. And I had some awesome people help me out. And I wanted to show them off today. They couldn't be here, so I am here talking to you about them. It helped us track our utilization and our quota across a multi-account structure. I still think our account structure is the right way to do it. Maybe it's not the right way for Outposts, but we made it work. So thank you. Take the survey.